Hi there. This is the Evolved Educator podcast. And each episode, we talk about something about education or teaching. And our goal is for you to feel part of the community. And we want to learn from you. And we hope that you learn something from us too. So welcome. We're happy that you're here. I'm Michelle.
I'm Chanmi.
I'm Jennifer.
So we'll jump right into this segment. It's called So You Had a Bad Day. So, as teachers, we're constantly pushing our students and we're also pushing ourselves to excel. But it doesn't always work out, that. But, if you start each day knowing that it will pose new challenges and that you're ready to face them head on, then you will feel equipped to achieve any goal.
So how do you do that? How do you get yourself to feel equipped to achieve any goal?
Let me tell you the story of something that happened that reminded me of this, the topic that we're talking about. I think it's a good example. So at the time I was teaching science, and it was the first quarter of the year. So it was very early in the school year. And the students had spent several weeks learning how to design scientific procedure. And at this point, they were ready to conduct their tests. So they come back from lunch, they're walking in smoothly, getting their materials, it's all good. But because this was the first time that the students were testing their own scientific designs, some groups' experiments didn't go very well, and the kids started feeling really frustrated, which I kind of knew that was going to happen because I had been monitoring them all along with, formative assessments, and I knew where they were in their learning. But what I didn't think about was that when they got frustrated, they were going to start playing, and then, one person has to go to the bathroom, and then all of a sudden everybody has to go to the bathroom, and it got a little bit out of control. That felt like a bad day.
Yeah, that really does sound like a bad day in a lot of our classrooms.
Yeah.
What did you do? Did you adjust in the moment, or did you adjust in the next class?
So this gets into answering your question. How do you feel equipped to achieve your goal that you're going to face these challenges? And, that's what I did. The period was almost over. The students were getting ready to leave, but I told them, I was very transparent with communicating with them. I told them that we need to revisit this lesson and we need to come back to it the next day because time was up. And that worked out well because it gave me time to reflect. But the students knew that what was happening wasn't working.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you should do. And that's exactly, I think that's what we all do. You sort of ask yourself those questions when it's done, like in the reflection part of it. And that's so important. Like, did I need to front load something for them or some information to kind of support them and get them started, to get them to better understand what the task was or what you were asking them to do? Did I help my students to see what the purpose of this activity was? Did they see the relevance in it? And then another thing that I think a lot of times, if you have a bad day or what we might consider a bad day, it's not like the whole day was bad or even the whole lesson. Like, I think it's really important when you go back and reflect that you kind of look at what was that point? Where was the point in the lesson? Did things start to flop? Was it early on, right away? Was it the timing, that they've been working and then they got confused? So I think it's really easy for teachers to say, oh, the whole thing was just a mess, when really it might have just been one little thing that needed to be tweaked. And that's important. That's why that reflection, I think, is so important afterwards.
So what I ended up doing was giving students reflection guide so that when it didn't work, then they could go back to those questions and answer the questions and then make adjustments in the moment. So they were ready. And if it did work, then they could reflect on that. But they had a specific task and directions what to do when their test didn't work for the design.
I think the lesson here is that if you do design those well thought out plans, what makes it well thought out is that you consider the students. Like, you have to consider their needs and think, did they connect or was there a disconnect? And if you're using what you know about like the current students in the class based on your formative assessments, like you said that you use, Michelle, like to drive your planning, then you can adjust and accommodate for what the students need to learn.
Right. So the students that were there in the moment, you know, they got what they needed. The students who didn't have, or whose tests didn't work out for their scientific design, they got what they needed the next day. But then the next time I did it, those students got exactly what they needed without having to go through all that, because I learned from reflecting. Yeah. So now we're ready for strategies that get the W. So, you know, we like to send everybody off with a little goodie, something they can use in their classroom. So since we're talking about reflection, you know, it's important that the students reflect too. So I chose the reflection journal. And when I use this, I use questioning strategies to prompt reflective thinking and respond to why, how, and what specific decisions were made. So, and I've done it a bunch of different ways. You know, you can do it in paper, you can do like a Google form or something like that. Sometimes students have to write out their thoughts in complete sentences. Sometimes they just write a list of words. Sometimes they respond to a Likert scale or even multiple choice replies. You can mix that up depending on what each student needs. But it's to get them to think about their own learning and how they should move forward. But on top of all that, it's a terrific way for the teacher to get a snapshot of student learning. So it really helps with formative assessments. And on top of all that, you got the metacognition skills. So it deepens the understanding because it prompts students to think about it, even just for a couple of minutes, to think about their thinking and what they did and what they learned.
I think it also like builds that self-awareness in students, because instead of the teacher, eventually you want them to be able to pinpoint like areas they got stuck or misconceptions or new learning, so then they can adjust for themselves as well. So
exactly. That's why the prompts focus on the why and the how and the what decisions that they made.
Yeah, it's a great idea. I think it's really important too for just demonstrating the process itself, especially in science, like you're saying, you know, the testing of ideas and then going back and reflecting on the process itself of what they did. And I would imagine that they would get much better at it as time goes on, reflecting. And if you're doing it regularly, it's just going to start to become a habit for them. Like, this is what you do.
Yes.
Like, and that it's an important step, and you don't just do it, you know, if a lesson doesn't go well. You do it every time.
You do it every time.
Yeah.
Yes, it's valuable every time.
Yes.
All right, and that's all we have for today. Thank you for listening. See you next time.